The boardroom was supposed to be silent that morning. One of those places where power whispered instead of shouted. But the sound that broke through the air wasn't power. It was fear. A woman's sharp gasp cut through the tension, followed by the words that would stop every heart in the room. "Hands off the lady." The voice came from the doorway, calm but cold, like a blade being unsheathed. Everyone turned. Standing there, framed in the morning light, was a man who didn't look like he belonged among the tailored suits and polished shoes. His sleeves were rolled up, his jaw clenched, his stance steady. He wasn't holding a weapon, but somehow everyone felt like he was the most dangerous man in that building. His name was Jack Rains, a retired Navy SEAL, single father, and the last person you'd expect to see in a corporate high-rise. He wasn't there for money, or power, or revenge. He was there because someone crossed a line. And when someone crossed a line near him, especially when it involved a woman who didn't deserve it, Jack didn't sit back and watch. That morning, no one in the boardroom had any idea who he was. But by the time the day was over, every single one of them would remember his name. It started 3 months earlier, when Jack had left everything behind: the uniform, the brotherhood, the danger. After 20 years of service, he'd come home to raise his teenage daughter, Sophie, alone. His wife had died in a car accident while he was deployed. The guilt of not being there still haunted him, even though Sophie never blamed him. He worked nights as a mechanic, fixing engines and keeping his hands busy so his mind wouldn't drift back to the things he'd seen. Sophie had just started an internship at Blake & Co., one of the biggest corporate consulting firms in the city. It was her first real job, and Jack had been proud but cautious. "You're smart, kid," he'd told her, "but remember, there are sharks in every pool. Swim with your eyes open." Every morning, he'd drop her off at the tall glass building before heading to the garage. He never imagined that one of those sharks would set his sights on Sophie's boss, Maya Sterling. Maya was everything Jack respected in a person. She was young but sharp, a woman who had built her career without stepping on anyone to get there. She treated Sophie like a mentor would, not like an assistant. Jack met her once when she stopped by the garage to thank him for raising such a wonderful young woman. Her voice had been kind. Her eyes, however, looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from fighting battles no one else can see. Then, one night, Sophie came home pale and shaken. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling. "Something's not right at work." Jack put down his wrench and looked at her. "What happened?" She hesitated. "Mr. Keaton, he's been harassing Miss Sterling. He corners her after meetings, says things, touches her shoulder when she asks him not to." Jack's jaw tightened. "Did she report it?" "She tried. HR brushed it off. Said there wasn't enough evidence. But tomorrow's the board meeting. She's supposed to present a new proposal, and Keaton told her if she doesn't cooperate, he'll ruin her career." For a long moment, Jack said nothing. Then he wiped his hands on a rag and stood. "What time's that meeting?" Sophie's eyes widened. "Dad, please don't. You can't just." He gave her a small, calm smile. "Don't worry, kiddo, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to make sure everyone plays by the rules." But when Jack Rains said that, it meant something different. The next morning, Maya walked into the boardroom with her proposal folder clutched tightly to her chest. Her stomach churned. She hadn't slept at all. Around the long mahogany table sat the company's top executives. Men and women who would decide her fate in the next hour. At the far end, with a smug smile, sat Richard Keaton. "Good morning, Miss Sterling," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Ready to impress us all?" "Yes, sir," she said quietly, though her voice trembled. The meeting began. She presented her strategy clearly, her hands shaking slightly but her voice steady. She talked about growth, sustainability, and ethics, words she believed in. But halfway through, Keaton interrupted. "I have a few personal questions." "Maya." He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You seem nervous. Are you sure you're ready for a position like this? Or did you think certain extracurricular efforts would secure it for you?" The room went dead silent. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, come on," he said, chuckling. "Don't act innocent. We all know how things work in this business." The other board members shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. That was how these things went. Everyone pretending not to see the fire as long as it didn't burn them. Maya swallowed hard, blinking back tears. This is inappropriate, Mr. Caton. He stood, walking around the table, stopping too close behind her. Inappropriate. You're the one who came to my office asking for help. Remember? I asked for mentorship. She said, her voice breaking. Same thing. He said, reaching out to touch her arm. That's when the door opened. Hands off the lady. The voice froze everyone. Keaton turned. Jack Rains stood in the doorway, wearing a dark jacket, his eyes steady and unflinching. He looked like he'd walked straight out of a war zone and into the heart of corporate arrogance. Who the hell are you? Keaton demanded. Jack stepped forward, calm and deliberate. Doesn't matter. What matters is you step away from her. Keaton laughed. Oh, what is this? Security! Get this clown out of here. 2 guards appeared by the door, unsure of what to do. But before anyone could move, Jack's voice cut through the air again, low, commanding, and cold. You really want to try that? The guards froze. Something about his tone told them he wasn't bluffing. Maya turned to him, stunned. Mr. Rains, stay behind me, he said softly. Then, to Keaton. You want to intimidate someone, do it with me. Not with a woman who's half your size and twice your courage. Keaton sneered. You don't know who you're talking to. Jack took another step forward. Actually, I do. You're the kind of man who hides behind his title, because without it, he's nothing. Gasps rippled through the room. You think being a CEO makes you powerful? Jack continued. I've seen real power. It doesn't wear a suit. It wears scars. It doesn't talk down to people. It stands up for them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Keaton, red-faced, lunged forward, shoving Jack's shoulder. Big mistake. Jack moved so fast no one saw it. He didn't hit Keaton. He just stepped aside, caught his wrist, and twisted it gently, but firmly, until the older man winced in pain and stumbled back. I said hands off, Jack said quietly. The room was silent. Keaton clutched his wrist, glaring but too afraid to move again. Then, slowly, Jack released him and turned to the rest of the board. You all saw what happened. If any of you have an ounce of decency left, you'll make sure this man never has the chance to do this again. He started to leave, but Maya's voice stopped him. Wait, thank you. He nodded once. You don't owe me thanks. You just keep doing your job, and don't let people like him take your light. Tuku. That evening, the news spread like wildfire. Keaton was suspended pending investigation. HR reopened all previous complaints against him. The company launched an internal reform. But the real story wasn't about Keaton. It was about Maya. She became a symbol of strength in the company, quietly inspiring others who had been afraid to speak. Sophie told her dad she'd never been prouder. One night, as the sun set behind their small house, she asked him, Dad, how do you always know when to step in? Jack smiled faintly, looking out the window. When you've seen enough people lose their battles, you start to recognize the moment someone needs a little backup. She hugged him. You're my hero, you know that. He chuckled softly. Nah. Heroes are the ones who keep standing when they could have fallen. The next morning, Maya visited the garage. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a note and a photo from her first day back at work. The note read, for reminding me that strength doesn't always wear a uniform, and that sometimes, one good man can silence a room full of cowards. Jack read it, smiled, and placed it in the toolbox beside a photo of his late wife. He didn't need medals anymore. This was enough. Later that day, as the shop bell rang and a new customer walked in, Jack looked up, wiping grease off his hands. Morning. The man said. You the guy who took down that executive at Blake & Co. Jack raised an eyebrow. Depends who's asking. The man smiled. Someone who could use a mechanic, and maybe, a bit of courage. Jack nodded slowly. Courage I've got. Let's start with the engine. And as the door closed behind them, the world outside went on. Loud, flawed, and full of people who still needed saving. But for one quiet moment, everything was right. Because somewhere out there, when someone tried to cross a line again, there'd be a voice ready to stop them. A calm, steady voice saying, hands off the lady.